The Academy Awards have been in existence for almost 93 years, even though this year is the 94th Academy Awards. According to Wikipedia, the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts, and Sciences first presented the awards in 1929 at a private dinner hosted by Douglas Fairbanks in the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel in what would become known as the first Academy Awards. The Academy Awards ceremony was first broadcast by radio in 1930 and was televised for the first time in 1953. The Oscars, as they are more commonly known, have been awarded to the best and brightest of the film industry, both domestic and abroad. Despite its glitz, glamour, and star power, the awards telecast viewership has declined very rapidly over the last few years, bringing in just barely 10 million viewers in 2021. 2020 saw 23.6 million viewers. The Oscars reached its peak in 1998 with over 57 million viewers tuning in to see who would take home a golden statuette. The Academy Awards usually run over 3 hours, and sometimes they do hover around 4 hours. They start around 8 and they usually end around to 11:30, closer to 12 o'clock. In order to hopefully keep the link down and to make people actually want to sit through an Oscar telecast, most people would sit through a 3 hour movie such as Infinity War or Avengers Endgame. I sat through Zack Snyder's Justice League multiple times because I enjoyed the movie. So as long as you keep it interesting, people will be invested. But more times than not, most people are not going to want to sit through a 3 hour long telecast with basically awards that most people don't want to care about. I mean, obviously, highlight those awards, talk about them and everything like that, but I do not think every single award should be revealed on national television, at least in that regard, because nothing is going to take away from those winners or the nominees having their moment and everything. You could still have those recorded, put them on your YouTube channel. That would definitely drive up viewership in that regard. But if you want to make a concise show and a show that people will want to bring in to watch, that could be one suggestion that I would definitely make. I'm pretty sure the suggestion has been made before, but in order to keep down on time, I think that is one thing that the Academy and the voters should consider. I think when it comes to politics, most people don't want to see them imbued in everyday life. I know that's something that people like to discuss over water coolers or during lunch break with their friends and colleagues and things of that nature. But when it comes down to sitting on a Sunday night watching television, you don't want to be constantly bombarded with it. At least I don't. I don't seek out having political discussions with my friends and family because usually those are some things that we don't talk about that often. And sometimes our friends and family may not share the same viewpoints as one another. Now, we would like to think that most people would like to have civil discourse and things like that, but this is 2022 and we've seen how people respond to others that have differing opinions than them. And I think with these celebrities using their platform to speak about these social and political issues is very brave and everything like that. But for the average person that may tune in for an Oscars telecast and may sit down and see what movies have been nominated and see if any of those movies they actually have seen, they don't want to be bombarded constantly with political speeches coming from people that may not be from the same cloth, I guess you can say, from them. So that, I think, could be one contributing factor in terms of why the Oscar viewership is down and why it's not for the general public. And it shouldn't conform to the general public, but I think the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences should understand that going forward, at least in trying to make it a little bit more appealing, which is going to be very different. It's going to be a very slippery slope because you're dealing with, of course, free speech, the allowing the artist to speak about things that he want to talk about, things like that. And there's no way you're going to avoid that. But you have most time you're on the other foot. Most people probably would not want to sit through 3 to 5 minutes of that at a time, hearing people talk about issues that they may or may not agree with. Even though I may agree with most of the people on the issues they may bring up, I don't want to be bombarded with it constantly. And I think that is, like I said, a very contributing factor into why people are losing interest in the Academy Awards. Hopefully this year we could see an uptick in that, but it remains to be seen. Speaking personally, when I talk to some of my friends and colleagues about the movies that are nominated for Best Picture or movies that they have seen, more times than not, they're going to tell me it's either going to be Shang-Chi, Black Widow, Spider-Man No Way Home, Encanto, Luca. Some of the the films that are possibly available for streaming, The Suicide Squad, movies such as that. Not necessarily just popular movies, mind you, but movies that they don't have to really worry about going to a theater in order to catch it. Or if they can sit at the comfort of their own home and watch a movie such as that, then they won't have to worry about spending $50 for tickets for a family of four and then another $50 at a movie theater to buy snacks and things like that. Unless you game the system, of course, and if you have your spouse, your significant other, whoever it may be, carry in a large bag if they don't do bag checks and things like that. Smuggling snacks and things like that. That way they won't have to worry about paying the exorbitant prices for movie theater popcorn and a small drink for $10-15. So it's just egregious. But only times you really see them shell out that amount of money for a movie is a movie that they feel is worth their time. Spider-Man No Way Home proved that in spades. It is the third highest grossing movie of all time as of right now. It's just beat out Avatar for the third highest grossing movie of all time. And it's looked like it's on its way to not slowing down anytime soon. At least until we see the next big blockbuster come in and basically slow its growth a little bit as well. But most people, they're not really going to invest a lot of time going to a movie theater that may or may not have a particular movie showing in that, because they'll be devoting 10 or 12 showings to the next Marvel movie or the DC film or a big blockbuster with a well-known star in the role. And if it's worth their time, they will spend the money. They will invest in it. If not, they can wait until it comes out on streaming or to rent it at Redbox, whatever the case may be. With these movies, Power the Dog, West Side Story, Dune, which I saw in theaters when I absolutely loved as well, but I did get the opportunity then when I didn't feel safe enough at the time, and when it got a little bit crazy in my area in terms of the COVID cases and things like that, I went home, sat in the comfort of my own home, and watched it again that way. But I mean, only if it feels safe to do so, that's when I feel most people would go and invest their time and money into watching a movie. And some of the movies that have been nominated this year, you've probably seen a couple of them on streaming services. But most people are either they may have watched it, didn't interest them, or they didn't finish it, or they had no interest in it whatsoever and they skipped through it. Some of these movies, such as Power of the Dog, Dune, they are pretty ambitious in terms of scope and storytelling. Dune was a movie that I guess you could say was based on a novel that was unadaptable. We've seen several attempts at it before, with the David Lynch film, which is considered a cult classic, but was, in terms of the production nightmare that it went through in the process of making that movie, it crashed and burned as soon as it hit the box office. And we've seen the less than stellar television miniseries based on the novels, chiefly among them Children of Dune. I remember it came out in 2000. I think it had a young James McAvoy as Leto Atreides in that one. But for most people, if it's something that does not interest in them, they will not invest the time into it, because people want to have a bit. This is what we're in the era that we're in now, is basically they're playing on nostalgia. They're playing on more things that are familiar. That's what has been the most successful. That's why you see Marvel has been basically cornering the market, as it were, in terms of the market share in the film industry and in television as well. We see Disney Plus show after Disney Plus show basically leading in terms of viewership and things like that. Peacemaker, even though it wasn't my cup of tea, actually, Peacemaker has been doing well following the week-and-week model. Euphoria has been doing well following the week-to-week model. But in terms of that, like I said, if people are not interested and they don't feel it's worth wasting their time on or investing 2+ hours into a movie theater watching it, they will move on to something else and watch something else. Filmmakers and celebrities such as Kevin Smith and Jimmy Kimmel have voiced their displeasure about Spider-Man No Way Home not getting a nomination for Best Picture in this year's Academy Awards. Spider-Man No Way Home is, I would say, the film that is responsible for bringing people back into the theaters amidst the pandemic that is ongoing right now. And while I would definitely agree it should have earned at least a nomination, outside of the technical aspects of the movie, I'm not 100% certain to see what movie could be knocked off from the list in order for it to accommodate Spider-Man No Way Home. Possibly could be expanded. I think what is so crazy to me is that Denis Villeneuve, who directed Dune, one of the Best Picture nominated films, did not get a nomination for Best Director, even though there are 10 films that are nominated for Best Picture. So I feel that at least the director category should be expanded as well. So there is a bit unevenness and a bit of bias in terms of how the Academy voters go about selecting the movies that they feel are the best of the best of 2021. Now, you can put up the case for Spider-Man No Way Home, and you can levy against that Black Panther, which was nominated for Best Picture back in 2018, the 2018 award season. Black Panther, in terms of its cultural impact, at least for a community of people, I feel it was a very strong reaction. We've seen nothing like that before. Me being a person of color myself, that movie had such a big impact on me when I saw it on opening night. I've seen many Black Americans out there, African Americans out there, going to the theaters dressed in African garb to represent their culture and things like that. So it had such a big impact on that. While Spider-Man No Way Home was one of my favorite movies of 2021, the story did leave me a little bit desired. There's a bit of plot holes there and a bit of plot holes here and there when you go back and think about it later on. But as a whole, the movie still did its job at delivering the hype and bringing some of our beloved characters back on the screen. So in that regard, yes, I think Spider-Man No Way Home should have been nominated for Best Picture, but I can see the side of why it was not, which is strange to me. But we've seen year in and year out the Academy Awards, and say for a couple of years, they have not been, I guess you could say, the most generous or most rewarding to the more popular films of that year, such as Black Panther or The Dark Knight, or the Avengers Endgame, movies like that. Hell, I can even put up Captain America: The Winter Soldier is probably one of the best written superhero films, one of the best written films that happened to be a comic book movie. So to not have that nominated for at least a writing award, or at least in the running for best picture, that could be argued against that as well. Most people would argue that the Academy doesn't practice what they preach. If you look at the Oscar field this year, it seems to be pretty level, but in some categories, more often than not, that is not as diverse as you would think they are. They would lead to you to be, or be more open-minded. Yes, most people would say that the Oscars, yes, they're not practicing what they preach. They talk about being more open-minded and diverse, but they're not acknowledging actors, actresses, filmmakers of color that have basically put out notable works in the year, and not honoring those particular people. So people would say that's a little bit hypocritical, and I guess you say I'm inclined to agree. Me being a cinephile, there are a lot of great movies that were basically pushed under the rug, and performances as well. Chiefly among them, Ruth Negga for Passing, who had a phenomenal performance as well. It looked like she did gain a little bit of steam towards the end, but ultimately not enough to at least score her a Best Supporting Actress nomination for her role in that movie, Passing. But I can't expect the Academy to get it right every time. They usually get it wrong more often than not. No disrespect to any of the nominees that have been nominated for their particular categories, but I just wish they are a little bit more open-minded and sharing the wealth, as it were, I could say. So have to do a better job of basically putting the money where their mouth is, lack of a better term. There hasn't been much change in terms of the structure of the Academy Awards. Nothing has really been expanded. We saw expanding on the Best Picture. Usually it fluctuates between 8 and 10, with 10 this year. But no new categories really have been added that are of any consequence. There are, at least will be a little bit more exciting. And I feel that there should be some acknowledgement or recognition for the stunt performers and the action coordinators that work on these films that people are working on. It could be something as simple as The Power of the Dog. You had the people that are basically coordinating how the actors are riding their horses to make sure they're at the safest possible thing. They're safe as they can be in order of riding these animals, or if they're in a a film that has visual effects such as Dune or Spider-Man No Way Home, there should be acknowledgement for the stunt coordinators for these films. Maybe that will be an opportunity for the more popular movies like the John Wicks, Nobody, even movies that people would consider guilty pleasures such as the Fast and Furious movies, getting some acknowledgement in terms of the stunt coordinating and the stunt performers for that. Andy Serkis, I feel, should have been nominated at least 5 or 6 times for his performances in the Lord of the Rings films as well, and even in The Hobbit, as well as King Kong. He had opportunities to be nominated for Best Supporting Actor, but because his performance is mostly in one of those motion capture suits, there's a bit of elitism when it comes to that. I mean, Andy Serkis is a veteran within the film industry, regardless of whatever side of the pond you're on. It doesn't matter if you're in the US, or if you're in the UK. His accomplishment, his performances in these movies, namely the Planet of the Apes films with Matt Reeves, and his work with Peter Jackson on the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit trilogy, they go unparalleled. And just to see there not be any acknowledgement for his performances, or actors such as him that are doing most of their work behind the scenes in order for it to be seen in a digital space behind a computer generated character or image feels a little bit unfair. So a lot more acknowledgement should be given to behind the scenes people, the people that are putting their lives at risk, are putting themselves at possibly greater bodily harm for our entertainment. So there should be a category or categories added to the Academy Awards in order to acknowledge their hard work. And I think a lot of people would agree with that sentiment. The hosts for this year's Academy Awards are Wanda Sykes, Regina Hall, and Amy Schumer. 2 out of the 3 hosts I'm very excited for. I love their brand of comedy, Wanda Sykes and Regina Hall. I'm 50-50 on Amy Schumer. No disrespect to her, I'm just not a fan of her comedy and things like that. So it could be hit or miss on her. Hopefully there'll be a very good balance between the 3 of them in order for them to have ample time to host the show, to do their comedy, things like that, and bring in their own flavor and inject hopefully some new life into the show. But over the last couple of years, there haven't really been a host because more times than not, either the people that they would want have either declined to host or have had old tweets dug up in their past about a poor or about a badly written joke or a joke that may have been offensive to most people. Referencing, of course, to Kevin Hart and things like that. Even though the man has since apologized for his actions, and we hope that most people will move on, but unfortunately that prevented him from hosting. And he could have been a really solid choice to host the Oscars, because I think general consensus on Kevin Hart, very popular, a very beloved comedian. I think a lot of people on both sides of the aisle will enjoy his brand of comedy and things like that, and he could keep it PG for the most part. But in terms of engaging and entertaining hosts, there haven't really been many in recent memory for me that I really enjoy. I think of Billy Crystal, Hugh Jackman, Steve Martin. Their work on the show has been great as well. Hugh Jackman is memorable for me, even though it's been 12, 13 years since he last hosted. And that was the year, of course, Heath Ledger won for his performance as Joker in The Dark Knight. But the makeshift sets, the musical numbers that he pulled off doing a one-man show, even though he had a little bit of assistance from Anne Hathaway in one segment of the performance, he did a really good job. And I feel hopefully they can bring someone that will be entertaining, that could engage with the audience as well, not just the people that are sitting watching them perform in that auditorium wherever they're hosting the Oscars for this year. So I think more engagement, more entertaining, a host that will basically be loved by majority of the masses, I think it should give a good opportunity to make it a little bit more appealing to people that have since lost interest in the Academy Awards.